Hello everybody, and you clicked on this video to see the #1 secret for shrimp tank success. And right here, right now, right away, I'm going to tell you the answer is a healthy, balanced planted tank. This video will serve as an introduction to my series about what we want to do is create a balanced planted shrimp tank. We all have ideas about what we want our tanks to be and what we want them to look like. Problems arise when what we want doesn't quite line up with what Mother Nature wants. While our shrimp tanks are not Mother Nature, obviously, the closer we can come to achieving a natural balance, the better our shrimp tanks will be. In the videos coming up in this series about balanced planted tanks, I will cover these topics and more in greater detail. In this video, I'll go over some of the basics of what we need to be looking at as to get our natural planted tanks more in line with nature. I think when we set up our planted shrimp tanks, we need to look at it more as this isn't just a tank to put shrimp in. We need to create a balanced ecosystem, and creating this harmonious, balanced ecosystem is the kind of environment that shrimp will thrive in the best. So, the things we want to cover here real quickly will be light, consistent water parameters, what type of plants, substrate, what we add to tank and food. By that I mean fertilizers, meds, water conditioners, and so on. Filtration. Do we even need it? Algae. And I think what a lot of people need to do and need to learn is we just need to leave it alone. You don't always need to be messing with stuff every little time you have a problem. Keeping it the same is the most important. So let's get to the first topic, and that is light. So when it comes to a balanced planted shrimp tank, any planted tank, not just a shrimp tank, but any planted tank for that matter, we need to consider the light, as it is one of the most important things. And what I'd say about light is you need enough, but you don't want too much. You definitely don't want too much. I know many people. So I'm going to start a planted tank, or planted shrimp tank, and they go out and get the most expensive light they can find. They want it to look awesome. They want to grow every plant they can get. But when we're talking about shrimp, you just want enough light to grow low light shrimp or low light plants. Now, that's just my opinion, but remember, the whole point of this video is to start my series of balanced planted shrimp tanks. And the light is one of the keys, and that's why I'm starting off with that. You don't want too much light. If you get too much light, you're going to be constantly battling algae. You're going to be trying to throw in all kinds of fertilizers and all that. And we don't want to be doing that because, look at that light. We don't want to be doing that because shrimp like consistency. Shrimp like consistency. Look at the little baby long fin, the lemon bristle nose, blue-eyed lemons. But shrimp want consistency. And if we're always having to throw in fertilizers, then that's not helping your consistency situation. And like you can tell here, we got a little bit too much light going on here probably. And what you can do is you can shorten the photo period, get a less bright light, or do more water changes, but it all needs to balance itself out. And one of the topics I want to talk about, but I'll go ahead and hit on it now. I talked about algae, and algae is something that we can use to balance ourselves out. That takes care of itself. Let me explain. Okay, so please excuse the total wreck of a tank we got going on here. This is all water spots because the dogs like to drink out of this tank. And look at, we got an algae mess. We've got duckweed. We've got more algae than we've got moss in this tank. But it's balanced itself out. And the algae's balanced it out. And the reason of that is the light. The light situation. And all things are tied to another. It's not like we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this. You do something here, it changes something else. You change something else, it changes something else. So if we added more light, we had a brighter light, and what this tank needs is fertilizers and stem plants and not just a clump of moss and algae everywhere. But what has happened, this is on the same timer as this whole rack here. Well, the rest of these tanks barely have enough light to even grow moss. Just enough to grow moss. That's all I'm trying to do in all these tanks. Some moss and anubias. That is the only plants in this whole rack. So there's not much light on most of these tanks. And so that means but they're all on the same timer. So that means the light intensity on this little short tank at this little 20 long has its own dedicated Aquanit LED light. And so what that means is the light is on for the same amount of time for all these tanks. But this tank, since it's such a short tank, the light intensity is much greater and we have way too much algae. And one of my videos coming up will be, I gotta reset this tank. That'll be some orange shrimp tank stuff, and that'll be fun. I'll be doing that. I'll still be doing the vlog videos, and then I'll be doing this balanced shrimp tank video. So another thing we can talk about is filtration. Filtration. Do we even need it? Because technically, everything in your tank, even the glass sides, even your glass walls of your tank, can act as your filter. Your substrate can act as your filter. Your plants certainly act as your filter, but do you need a dedicated filter? I say, my opinion of it is that most tanks, almost all tanks, need some kind of air source. And if you're going to have air, then it may as well be on a sponge filter. Now, I'm not always into sponge filters and air, but I have lots of different kinds of filtrations going in all my different tanks. Look at all the little baby fire reds. Wow. Wow. But then we have that to consider. I have a video not too long ago on shrimp tank filtration. But we'll talk about how how everything in your tank goes into the filtration process. How this big clump of moss is part of the filtration system. This little layer of blessing stain is part of the filtration system. And we'll have a video talking about that here for too much longer. What kind of plants do we need to balance it out? There's certain kinds of plants that will grow faster, certain kinds of plants that grow slower, and that all depends. That also has to do with what our purpose of the tank is. So if we're selectively breeding shrimp, we're not going to want a great big wild jungle. We're going to want a bare tank with a nice big clump of moss that we can take out and remove and manage our shrimp population that way. So we can always get in there and call and take out the bad shrimp. So that would mean on a tank where you're not worried about pulling out shrimp like my Skittles tank. This is where all my lesser shrimp come to live eventually. So I can let this tank grow into a nice big crazy jungle. But on tanks where I'm trying to really keep a good close eye on shrimp, we just have moss that I can easily pull out. Careful to shake all the shrimp off the best I can. And then we can sort through our shrimp. But that depends. Now if you have a brighter light, now this is just a really cheap T5 style LED. They're the Barina ones. This is what we're dealing with here. I use these a lot and I really like them. They do a really good job for the light. Look at these Bloody Marys. So in closing, I hope this video makes some sense to everyone. This is just an introduction video, and everything I've touched on in this video, I'll go into great detail, but these are some of the things we need to worry about when we talk about a balanced planted shrimp tank. Everything is related to another thing. How much light we have depends on how much fertilizer we got to put in, how much food, how long your lights are on. That's also your photo period. There's your filtration, your basic steady consistent water parameters. Everything goes into plan. It all needs to make sense with each other. And so again, our shrimp tanks, you have much better success. We just leave it alone and let it bounce out. Now, do I necessarily love that I have string algae going all the way across my 40-gallon blue jelly tank? I'm not in love with it. But the algae grew because the algae needed to grow, because there's either too many nutrients or too much light for the plants that are in here. It's just moss and a slow growing anubias. So, you know, maybe I could do a little bigger water change in here. Probably shortening the photo period by an hour a day would help. So I might do, or you could do a combination of both, but not too much because we want consistency. So that's the kind of things I'll be talking about. And we're setting up an environment. Like when you're breeding certain fish, you're actively doing these things to try to get these fish to spawn. When you're breeding shrimp, you're just setting up the most perfect environment that you possibly can. And that perfect environment, in my opinion, is a low light planted shrimp tank. Super easiest kind of tank to keep. Super easy basic plants that are going to grow, reliably grow, and soak up the nutrients. Act as a filter. Keep your water as healthy and clean as possible without having to do huge water changes. And you got to find that perfect balance. So, thank you guys for watching. Bye.